I'm Donnie Haulk, Commissioner, Rutherford County, and we're having budget talks with the department heads today. And in this group here, we have emergency services and public safety. And we're going to be talking about their concerns and budgets and what we got going on in the county. And we're in budget season. And I don't know how many budget seasons you guys have been through. How many budget seasons have you been through?
This is my third.
Third budget season?
Number 9 for me.
Number 9.
Fourth.
15.
15 budget seasons. Yeah, that's something else. This is my first. I've never experienced. And in corporate life, it's not like this. You know, we have a couple meetings and we make decisions and we move on. Yeah, there's meetings after meetings after meetings on this. So we've got Caleb Johnson. We got Frankie, Fire Marshal Emergency Services Director Scott, Shufflebean. Did I get that right? You were waiting for me to pronounce that last
I was waiting. You didn't say his last time.
And then Jeff Bradley, Extensions Director, Livestock Program. Caleb, so tell me what you think on this budget season. What's going on?
Well, this budget season is a lot like the rest of them. Every year we start going through our budgets 1st of January.
Okay.
That's when I start going through my budget and getting it ready to present. I think we have to turn them in 1st of February, and then they get moved on in the process. And I think this one has caught a lot of attention this year on social media and things like that. I do not know all the details because myself, I'm not on social media. So I don't know all the details of everything that's on social media. But with the budget, I try to keep a zero balance as much as possible. I know that's very hard to do in this day and time. And with us trying to recruit and retain our employees and losing a lot of employees to not only private sector and emergency medical services, but also other counties, that is helping push my budget this year and my thoughts during the budget process. I spend probably 6 weeks at the most putting my budget packet together for the county manager and the finance director. Probably 6 full weeks. I know that's probably right.
And you just reviewing year prior and then you're estimating next year?
I go 3 years.
3 years prior. See what your trends are.
Yes, sir. 3 years prior, see what our trends are. And just like everything else in the world, medical supplies are going through the roof right now. And
how many are manufactured in the U.S.?
Right now, the ones I know of, our main manufacturer is in the U.S. Some of them are actually in North Carolina.
Okay.
But with our saline, the saline company that we use mainly was in McDowell County. And during the hurricane took a hit. So normal saline has been a very hot commodity around the world. And little old Rutherford County EMS services do not use as much as the United States military or another country that they send them to. So we're only allotted so many cases a month that we can order.
All right. And Frankie, hopefully you don't have to do another hurricane in your 3 years prior.
That's right. Yeah. So, which it appears that we've pretty much hit all the disasters except for earthquakes. We're keep that one back. We don't want that. We've had wildfires, record snow. We've had record flooding, and the flooding keeps continuing. But I think one of the things that's important to point out on the budget cycle for the county is how much work each department puts into that, and not just each department, county department, but the finance department, HR, public works, all that, because we submit a budget to each one of those. So if I want radios, I submit a budget to Scott, and Scott puts that in his budget for 911 communications. If I want a vehicle, I submit that to Danny Searcy for the planning department. If I want another employee or a pay raise, wherever else, I submit that to HR. So there's a whole lot of pieces inside of this that go into it prior to us even having a meeting. And then, like Caleb said, finance goes back and they print us off a sheet that says, this is your past 3 years expenses. This is what you overspent on or underspent on. And then before all that, then we finally have an actual sit down meeting with the county manager, finance director, HR, and then we go through line by line on our budgets. And we talk about every single line, what we spent last year, what we spent the past 3 years, what we're projected to spend this year. So I feel like the department heads go through our budgets very, very closely, and then everybody else goes through our budgets, and then we have to explain why our budgets are like that before they even reach the commissioner level. So I thought that's very important to know. And then, we have several meetings prior to with the rest of the department heads countywide. The county manager will stand up there and he'll talk about budget stuff, how tight the money is. And, he wants us to succeed and improve our departments. But at the same time, we've got a certain amount of dollars that we can do that with.
And we are concerned this year because of the hurricane.
That's right. Yeah.
How did that impact? I mean, you had a ton of people coming in from out of state.
That's correct. And that's one of the biggest things that we look at in our budget. And my normal day-to-day expenses, I get certain monies from the state. It's called Emergency Management Preparedness Grant. And in the years past, we've got $38,000. And that was what all my money that I use for, restock and resupply or, changing out batteries on equipment. That's what I use for that. But now the state cut that money. So now I only get $20,000. So $18,000.
Do you know why the state cut the money?
So state emergency management is like 95% funded by grants from the federal emergency management. And as those are dwindling away and being cut back, the state is having to cut back on funds that they're dispersing out to locals. So that was one of the things that went away. We're required every year to go to so many conferences, have so many activities, and that's how we get that money from the state. So it's not just like, here's your $38,000. We actually have to work to get that. But the problem is now that that's $18,000 that come out of my budget of, equipment that would be used for flooding or wildfires or whatever else. So trying to figure out where to move money around inside my budget without asking for more money, sometimes is difficult.
So let's talk about that a minute, because that is a concept for me. And here again, 3 months in, grasping how the state, federal, and local dollars are done. When you're talking about state grants, those are not local tax dollars monies.
That's correct.
But sometimes, in certain programs, local tax dollars monies are required to be able to fund a state or federal grant.
Correct.
Do you have anything like that you can expound on?
So several of our grants that we've received, which Emergency Management Fire Marshal Office is very limited on what grants we can do. There's a lot of federal grants that we can't apply for, even state grants. The Office of State Fire Marshal, they have a grant. Local fire marshal offices can't apply for it. The federal have a grant called Assistance to Firefighter Grant. Emergency Management Fire Marshal Office can't apply for it, but EMS can. And so a lot of those grants are either even the 100% grants. Several ones we done the dive boats. That was a 100% match grant. The weather siren project that we just completed 3 weeks prior to the storm, that was a state/federal grant. And all those were 100% funded, but the county had to front the money first.
Okay.
So that's where,
the fund balance comes into play. Because you pull money out of the fund balance to advance fund to be backfilled.
That's correct. And
with the grant.
So 3 weeks prior to the storm, and that was over probably about a year now that we've been working on that project. And so, we had to pay for all those sirens and the install up front, and we haven't got the money back yet. So, that's, almost a year, maybe a year and a half before we allow to put that money back in the fund balance.
And to me, that's worrisome. And like the 23 million, I think we're advancing on this cleaning up and sticks. And after the hurricane, we're having to advance out of the fund balance. And yeah, it makes me nervous. And I don't know if you guys saw the news this morning that some of those things that were COVID dollars spent, the federal government has decided that that's the end of it. And some of the states are going to be losing and have already spent up to $400 million that is not going to be refunded in their balances now. The federal government has decided. So that's when you see things like that. When I see things like that, it makes me really concerned about those advanced dollars and waiting on the money a year and a half to come back in. I do get concerned about that.
And it does feel like it's constantly changing. Like unfortunately, we've had several disasters. We had the Party Rock fire, which was a complete different reimbursement type. That's what they call an FMAG grant. Then you have FEMA reimbursement, and they're all different. They're all constantly changing. You have to stay on top of it. I know myself and Paula, the finance director, we spent a lot of time on the phone with different people trying to make sure that we don't end up in a situation like that. We don't want to expend dollars that we're not going to get back
and never see again.
It just it's difficult.
So Scott, how you been doing getting ready?
Been doing good. Like we just discussed, this is really only about my third year of working on a budget. Now I actually have two budgets to work on because I do have North Carolina 911 board contract.
Okay.
So that does provide some funding for us. That's probably only about 25% of what our budget is, and it generally only goes towards equipment and supplies. That type of doesn't help in anything with staffing.
Okay.
That type of salaries. Budget this year is has been just like the last couple of years, and Caleb even mentioned is staffing. As far as hiring, retention, trying to figure out ways other than salaries, what can attract, new people to come to, communications. It's not an easy thing to sell for a lot of people. It is stressful.
It's a stressful job.
You're there for 12 hours. We handle about 409 calls a day on average.
Repeat that number.
409 calls.
But your daily average is 409 in Rutherford County.
Yes. So for a population of approximately
67,000. Yeah.
We get a pretty high call volume. Last year alone,
Does that mean we got more crazy people here?
I don't know. You'll know. We have a lot of repeat callers too.
Okay.
But last year alone, we managed, I believe it was 148,000 calls for the year.
148,000 calls.
Yeah. And that's with a staff of 18 telecommunicators.
Back to the budget briefly. Do you know roughly percentage-wise how much of your budget at 911 is state funded versus federal or local funding? Does it split three ways? Is it split two ways?
As far as the difference, what we get from the state is about a third of what our
and then local dollars
funding is. Yeah.
Are there any federal funds for 911?
No, not to really speak of.
Okay.
There is, like Frankie mentioned, there are grants out there. We just completed a state grant though, but it was for the purchase of backup radios to stay in our center.
And someone on your team actually fills out that grant paperwork.
Yes, I did that.
Yeah. And that's intense too, right?
Thankfully, it wasn't as intense as they can be.
Yeah.
This was fairly simple. It was approved through the 911 board, so the process was actually fairly simple. And the funding was 100% for the rail kits that we did receive.
Okay, so that's good.
Yes.
So Jeff, you're the senior guy here on budgets.
You call me old?
I use the word senior.
Yeah. Mature.
Experienced. The most experience on budgets. What do you see in this budget cycle like? How for you, first off, what is it that you and your team do for the county?
So we're basically NC State in Rutherford County. We've been around since 1914. The Smith-Lever Act was a national bill that went to the House and Senate and passed, became a law that extension services exist across the country tied to land-grant universities. So NC State is the land-grant university in North Carolina. You go to South Carolina, it's Clemson, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, so on and so forth. So extension is in every state of the United States. In North Carolina, we are in every county and the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians. Our funding is roughly half state and half county. It's a partnership. The North Carolina A&T State University is also a part of our organization. The the state funding is partially federal dollars and partially state dollars. And I would say that if you went across North Carolina and looked at the makeup of all the counties, of course, your urban centers are going to be much larger. We're considered rural. We have a staff of 6. But we cover my job is the director, but I also have educational responsibilities for livestock. So any of our citizens who have questions about raising livestock in the right way, and our goal is to extend it in the name extension. We extend knowledge from NC State to the citizens of our county. We take that research and we help our citizens apply it so they make more money or lose less money, whatever the trend may be.
Me and my farm is to lose less money.
It depends on the market. There's a lot of things, and we help them. Me personally, I help farmers figure out how to manage their pastures.
Okay.
How to market their animals.
I was going to ask, do you get into crops?
Crops. We do crops. Now, a lot of if you talk about row crops or gardens or
not necessarily gardens, but commercial.
Yeah. So our corn growers, our soybean growers, we have some cotton in the far eastern end of the county. We help all those people. Now, it may not be me directly. We have area agents, and that's one thing that when you fund our office, most of we have a really small budget compared to a lot of other departments. The biggest part of our budget is salaries for our agents and our administrative assistant. But when you fund our office, you also tap into a network of university specialists. We have area agents, we have university specialists, and not just them, but across the country. I've got friends in a lot of states that I call up with cattle questions all the time.
Okay.
So it's not you're not just funding our people right here. You're tapping into a huge network for educational programming, not just in livestock, but horticulture. So we have a horticulture agent. She helps any homeowners with questions, any commercial growers. If we have nurseries or these landscapers, they have to
and trees and forestry.
Trees, every bit of that stuff. We do all that. We also have a 4-H agent that does 4-H youth development, and a family consumer science agent who helps with, basically, I think about her as anything inside the home, but then it goes beyond that to health and wellness, health and nutrition. We have an FNEP agent, which is directly targeted at low-income families. She only works with low-income children and adults with health and wellness.
How many farms do you think we have in the county right now, or how many?
I think the last census, I looked that up, but I know last year we served around 200. Now,
Okay.
some of those may be repeat.
Yeah.
But just thinking about
And those that are taking advantage of your services that you offer. I think there's a lot that don't know.
Oh yeah, we're considered one of the best kept secrets. When people when I get a new client, I know a lot of my clients personally, but when I get a new client call me, I always ask, "How did you find out about us?" And lots of times it's word of mouth from a neighbor who knew about us. Our farmer population's old.
Yeah.
It's not getting any younger, but I have been encouraged the last couple of weeks of getting calls from younger, new farmers.
Well, hopefully this video will help as well and making people aware that this is here in Rutherford County. It's a service that you offer.